Welcome to Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, do we have a packed show for you tonight? No doubt about it. We have just a cram-packed down the farm. We're going to hear about Jackson Ferris. We're going to hear about some of the really younger arms in the system. We're going to hear from Taylor Young, a young man who sets the stolen base record each year in the organization for the Dodgers. Another young man who's a very talented outfielder. We're going to hear from Bubba Alleyne, who had his best year as a professional to this point. Seamus Barrett and all sorts of guys. We're going to hear also from Steven Nelson, get his thoughts on how the offseason has gone. Also, man, I'll tell you what, the hot stove has absolutely been cooking. It's been really hot as of late. Diego Cartaya gets DFA'd. I'm going to give maybe more of a unique perspective on that, having seen these guys and seeing, one thing, if there's one thing that I habitually complain about, it's the ability for these young men to have the path forward, to have the major league career that they deserve. And so maybe not, but I think I might have a little bit different perspective than most people do on that situation with Diego Cartaya. Kind of compare that to the situation that Hunter Fiducia is in, maybe a Drew Avens, somebody like that. And then how about HyeseongKim Kim? Wow, what a signing that was. Going to talk all about HyeseongKim Kim. Going to talk all about the Diego Cartaya situation. Going to talk all about the ramifications of what that means for the roster and all of that on today's show. But more importantly, and most importantly, I want to talk to you. So finally got rid of all of my crud. Not going to lie, it's been a long week. Want to thank Austin Brubaker for the absolutely star-studded work that he has done here at Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Austin just has absolutely killed it on the podcast and really kind of held down the fort while I was able to do some things that I had to do away as far as some personal things. So super thankful to Austin and all of the things that he has done for Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network in terms of the podcast work that he has done. So let's jump right into it and let's talk about the recent acquisition of HyeseongKim Kim and what he means for the Dodgers. And let me get a graphic up here if I can right here. And I'm going to go straight to this so you can see it on the screen and we can go right down to it and kind of take a look at what his stats look like and all that kind of thing. So there it is on the screen. So this is from 2017 to 2024 in the KBO. And one thing that really excites me about this as you look down the line, 330, 326, 335, 318, 304. Those are batting averages, and I'm one that still believes that batting average matters. That shows me how well that you can gather hits, and I think gathering hits still really matters. But when you look at the on-base percentage, 383, 396, 373, 372. So the one thing that, as far as maybe a criticism that people have had or maybe something that the Dodgers may say, hey, this might be something that the Dodgers need to work on or whatever, would be the power, right? Because if you look at this, 7 home runs and then only 7 home runs combined between 21 and 22, and then only 7 home runs in 2020 in 553 at-bats. Fine. He's a middle infielder. I know he's played some third base, but I would imagine the Dodgers might spot him at third base some, but I think he's going to squarely be depth as a middle infielder for the Dodgers. So I'm not worried about that as much. And here's another deal too. This is really where I'm looking at this the most, okay? The one thing that I wouldn't say the power is the issue to me. I don't care if he hits home runs or not. I love the fact that Tommy Edman hit some home runs last year. I enjoyed watching him do that. I think they played a benefit to the Dodgers, no doubt. But that's not what made me really fall in love with the game of Tommy Edman. How many home runs he gives the Dodgers this next year, fine, I'll take it. I just love the way that he plays the game. So the one thing that I would say with HyeseongKim Kim that I would like to see improve, more than anything else, is the walk rate. I think for him to be a player that's really going to make an offensive impact for this Dodgers roster, I think that base on ball percentage right there, that needs to climb to 14-15%. And I think the way that the Dodgers train their hitters, I think Hyesung Kim, just looking at the way that he sets up, he has been trained to be a guy that has to gather base hits, right? He's a guy that needs to get base hits. He needs to drive in some runs, as you see 57 runs driven in last year with not very many home runs. That tells you he drives in runs with his base hits, right? So I think there's going to need to be a little bit of an adjustment period to teach him the strike zone a little bit better. Plus, you know, the pitchers in the major leagues are going to be a little bit different, both in talent and style, than they are in the KBO. So I'd like to see that walk percentage, that base on ball percentage, get up to 14 or 15% that you're seeing right here. Okay. But I will say this. Okay. Here is what why I'm not concerned whatsoever whether he hits that many home runs or not. First of all, the Dodgers have plenty of guys that can hit home runs. Michael Conforto can hit the ball to the moon. Teo Hernandez can hit the ball to the moon. Will Smith can hit home runs. Max Muncy, we know that's his game. It's hitting home runs. Shohei Otani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, they can hit home runs. I think Gavin Lux, if he ends up being the second baseman for the entire year, I think he can hit 15 or 16 home runs. So that doesn't bother me at all, because if you look at this, the K percentage was 12%, which is awesome. I mean, that is an awesome number there. And then the ISO which is the power index, is almost exactly identical. So no, does Hyesung Kim hit a lot of home runs? No. But do his home runs versus his strikeout rate, does that ratio make it a positive ratio and a positive trade-off? Yes. So I would rather him have this very equal trade-off right here than, say, him hit maybe 6 or 7 more home runs, and then this ISO, the K percentage goes up to, say, 18% and a chance to do that. ISO is not going to increase a whole lot, because I think he can hit a lot of doubles. As you see here, he hit 26 doubles. I mean, he's hit 55 doubles in the last 2 years. So I think he can hit a lot of doubles and some triples. You saw 6 triples last year. So I would rather him keep that K percentage and ISO equal with each other than try to chase more home runs and increase the strikeout rate and make a more negative ratio between his strikeout percentage and his power numbers. But again, that's just me. And I'll say this again, and I've said this many different times. I think probably, well, I haven't said it many different times about Hyesung Kim, but in terms of just style, going all the way back to even a couple of years ago, definitely after the Dodgers lost out in 2023 to the Padres, the number one complaint I had was too boom and bust, 2-3 true outcome-ish. The Dodgers need more dynamic type of players. They need more dynamic type of offensive profiles. And this is yet another example of the Dodgers cutting a guy like Diego Cartaya, who's shown strikeout rates around 30%, but with a lot more power, and trading that guy in for a guy with a dynamic offensive profile in Hyesung Kim. So Hyesung Kim has minor league options, so I don't expect him to be at the major league level right away. Now, he's making $22 million over basically a little over $7 million a year. So he is going to get some major league runway this year. I can't imagine any scenario that doesn't happen. I'm not convinced that it'll be right away. I don't have any inside information on that. But I will say this, it doesn't have to be right away. So the Dodgers can pick and choose how they incorporate him into this. I like the fact that he's been in the KBO, had a lot of success. I like the fact that he's in the World Baseball Classic. And I like the fact the Dodgers have had eyes on him for a long time. The last time the Dodgers had their eyes on a dynamic offensive profile utility player, the last time they've had eyes on a guy like that for a long time. You know who that was? Tommy Edman. Yes. So the Dodgers saw HyeseongKim Kim play in the World Baseball Classic and against the Dodgers also, and whenever the Dodgers went over, okay, and they liked what they saw. Not just, so I promise you, it's not just the results. They liked the swing. They liked the way that the setup, the approach. They liked the utility aspect of it. They liked the mentality. I promise you, I've talked to a lot of these scouts in the Dodgers system. For you to grab the Dodgers' eye, like Tommy Edman did, for you to be a utility type guy, it's obvious when you're Shohei Otani. Everybody wants Shohei Otani. It's obvious when you're Mookie Betts. Everybody wants Mookie Betts, right? It's obvious whenever you're Freddie Freeman. Everybody wants Freddie Freeman. It's obvious when you're Teo Hernandez and you're one of the most coveted free agents in free agency and you can hit a lot of home runs. Those guys are obvious, okay? But when you're a utility guy that doesn't hit a whole lot of home runs and there's not really one single thing that you can go, well, what is that guy great at? You can't go, oh, well, it's this, and that. It's really, you kind of go, well, he's just kind of good at everything. For the Dodgers to pay attention to you as much as they have Tommy Edman and HyeseongKim Kim, that tells me that in all the things that these players can do pretty well, they do well enough to grab the Dodgers' attention, which tells me that HyeseongKim Kim is an impressive player, just like Tommy Edman is, and he's another player that's going to bring yet another dynamic offensive profile to the Dodgers. Kike Hernandez, I think probably him and Miguel Rojas, this affects them the most unless they can figure out a way to trade Gavin Lux, something we've been talking about all offseason. And I want to reiterate, when I talk about trading Gavin Lux, it doesn't mean that I don't think he's not good enough to be on this team or that I don't think he's good. It's the opposite. It's because I think the Dodgers have got him back to his peak level. I think there's an excitement that he got over his injury. And the second half of the season, whenever he was away from his injury, he was a fantastic player, right? I think at this point, we saw where the Yankees and the Mariners have shown interest in Gavin Lux. I think that is a great situation. So unless Gavin Lux is moved, I think this affects playing time for Miguel Rojas because HyeseongKim Kim can play third base, he can play shortstop, he can play second. Basically, he is Miguel Rojas, right? Maybe a Miguel Rojas that has more of a dynamic offensive profile. Okay, and then it's probably Kike Hernandez that gets squeezed here too. And I'll say this. I love Kike Hernandez. I want Kike Hernandez back because I want the Dodgers to win another World Series. Kike Hernandez fits in like a glove. I love his mentality. I love his clutch factor. I love the fact that he comes up big. I don't like his offensive profile, though. On an everyday 162 game basis, I'm not a fan of Kike Hernandez's offensive profile. I love Kike Hernandez. So like for maybe like August, September, October, November, I love Kike Hernandez because I don't give a rat's ass what your offensive profile is. I just want you to perform, right? But for the other 5 months of the year, I think the dynamics of it kind of, they balance themselves out. The long run of it, it takes its toll. And I would rather have more of a dynamic offensive profile. So I do think this kind of plays until, like I said, until they figure out the Gavin Lux situation. I think this is probably looking at Miguel Rojas. This is looking at Kike Hernandez. And I am perfectly fine with that because, again, if the Dodgers want to go get Kike Hernandez for the time of the season, I don't care if the Dodgers have Kike in a Dodger uniform in April. I don't care. The Dodgers are going to win the same amount of regular season games with or without Kike Hernandez. If the Dodgers go get Kike, when I want him to be on the squad is exactly what they did last year. Go get him in August. Go get him down the stretch where the accents of his strengths really come to the forefront, which is simply the fact that in big moments, he comes up huge. So all in all, the Jesung Kim signing is super exciting. There is an opportunity cost to it. Alex Freeland, what do you do with him? Hey, Alex Freeland's not on a major league contract yet, right? So money talks. Everything else walks. So when you have a guy on a major league contract, yes, Jesung Kim does have minor league options. Yes, he can be sent to Oklahoma City. But yes, he is on a major league contract, which puts him first in line over Alex Freeland. First of all, he had to be put on the 40-man roster. To do that, the Dodgers had to remove one of their, the top prospect in the organization 2 years ago, a young man who's still only 23 years old and still has a world of potential. Yeah. And so to do that, there is opportunity cost for Alex Freeland. There was opportunity cost for Diego Cartaya. There's opportunity cost for Noah Miller. Opportunity cost for Austin Gothier, who had one of the best minor league seasons of anybody out there 2 seasons ago in 2023. Maybe a Cody Hosey, somebody like that. So there's always opportunity cost. But when you can get a guy that's as dynamic as Jesung Kim, that's played in the KBO, you have seen with your own eyes, that has a very dynamic offensive profile, and it's $22 million over 3 years. I mean, come on, guys. The Dodgers are playing chess, right? I mean, this is just another example of the Dodgers playing chess with everybody else in the league. Hey, Justin Lamas, thank you so much for joining. 2:45 a.m. in France. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, Ila Shiva, I love Miggy Rojas. I even said it not last year, but in 2023 when he was struggling. I just love watching Miggy Rojas play. The coach in me just kind of takes over, and I'm like, I would go in a foxhole with that guy. Whether he wins, lose, or draws, that guy's going to give you everything he has. He's always going to be in the right spot. He's always going to hustle, and he's always going to, from an IQ perspective, he's never going to make mental mistakes, right? We have seen him do it, but it's very, very rare. So I'm with you, Ila Shiva. I absolutely love Miggy Rojas, no doubt about that. Close the gap. Oklahoma City is a beast, no doubt. What a wonderful crowd we have logged in. NorCal Eddie, Jack Powers, Sam Kim. Nobody thought the Dodgers were interested in Jesung Kim. Actually, we did a show about a month ago where we talked about Jesung Kim, and we talked about him being a possibility coming to the Dodgers. We didn't really go into depth in him and anything, but this has been brought up before. This is something that came out of nowhere, maybe to Dodgers fans and myself included. I'm not sitting here saying that I expected them to go sign Jesung Kim, but this is not a name that we've never mentioned before. We have talked about Jesung Kim before, and that only goes to show this is a guy the Dodgers have been eyeing for a while. Again, a very similar situation to Tommy Edman. Would love to know the details. Swooped in and boom. Yeah. So the details are the Dodgers have seen him in the World Baseball Classic. They've seen him up close and personal against the Dodgers, and they love what they saw. Hey, Gregory, thank you so much for joining. Jack Powers, those numbers are already comparable to Miguel Vargas' AAA numbers, except Kim is a better fielder, and he plays more positions. I know they tried to play Miguel Vargas at second base. That sucked. Okay, Miguel Vargas grew up a third baseman. He's a corner infielder. That was not going to work, especially trying to incorporate him to a different position at the major league level. Something I love the way the Dodgers do things, but I hate it when they try to incorporate new players at the major league level at an entirely new position. So I would totally agree. I watched a lot of Miguel Vargas, a good player. I had not seen very much of Jesung Kim, but I can tell you, if the Dodgers signed off on him and they've eyed him for this amount of time, I promise you they're not going to be wrong on this guy. Hey, I wanted Jesung Kim, but Jesung Kim is better. Maldonado Archives. That is absolutely hilarious. Me too. I've said Jesung Kim this whole time. Whatever, man. I think the Dodgers definitely addressed a need here. So Sam Kim is exactly right here. Zero pressure. This is another thing about this that is so brilliant. There's zero pressure on Jesung Kim here because in their first year, he doesn't have to be in the major leagues the whole time. The Dodgers can send him back down. He can get, like Sam Kim saying here, 200, 250 at-bats at the major league level. Just play solid defense and go from there. Just kind of get incorporated in at a kind of a slower pace. So Kim will surely bring K's Law disaster to the Dodgers. Hey, Gregory, our wonderful moderator, are there any coaches on the Dodgers that you think should be replaced? If so, why? No, not the Dodgers, as far as the major leagues, I would say no on that, but definitely not at the minor league level. Sam Kim HyeseongKim could have gone to multiple teams where he could have been the starting second baseman. Such a smart move, Kim, in the long run, because here's the difference. He signed a major league contract, so it doesn't make a difference at all whether he's fielding ground balls in AAA Oklahoma City or whether he's fielding ground balls in LA. He's making the exact same amount of money. So that's where the intelligence came in, is where he could go to a winner. He could go where he can be comfortable with Shohei Otani, with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, hopefully Roki Sasaki. He can work himself in, talking about the international flavor of the Dodgers at a slower pace and make the $22 million of a major league contract. It is a best of all worlds for HyeseongKim, no doubt about it. Roy Estrada, hey, don't get upset if Lux gets traded. No, I've been advocating for trading Lux. I would celebrate if the Dodgers traded Lux because I think he's at his peak value, and I think it would give Gavin Lux a great opportunity to go spread his wings, be in an everyday position to where he can relax a little bit, not have just the world on his shoulders, feeling like if he goes for a 2-week slump, people are going to shit all over him and that kind of thing, which kind of you get that vibes with Gavin Lux. So I would be super pumped if Gavin Lux gets traded. Look at Lux, the Mariners. Yeah, we talked about that, how the Mariners and the Yankees both have been looking at Gavin Lux and super excited about that. Jack Powers, thank you so much for joining. Hey, was that a good runs per at bats in 23? Was it 104 for 621? So he scored 104 runs in 621 at bats. So basically, he scored a run for every 6 plate appearances. So yeah, that's I would say that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good there. So Kim is only making $4.5 million a season, and it's only 3 seasons. Hey, Maldonado Archives, thank you so much for joining. Ela Shiva, you are a rock star. Thank you so much. CCD, thank you for being on the show. It's always interesting with you when Mr. Brubaker is alone. Let's see. Sam Kim. Kim will get plenty of playing time in AAA, and the bigs next year, he will. It's a perfect case scenario for him. So, hey, what we're going to do right now, we've got caught up on some of these chats. What we're going to do now, I'm going to shift my attention to Diego Cartaya. So, what do you think about that? That came out of nowhere, and I was like, wow, when I heard it. I mean, it was shocking. It was jarring. It was like the Dodgers' number one prospect just a couple of years ago has a couple of bad years. All of a sudden, he's DFA'd. And then when I got to thinking about it more and more, it started making more and more sense to me. So what do you think about the Diego Cartaya situation? Let's talk about that a little bit. So I think it took everybody by surprise the other day when we found out that Diego Cartaya got DFA'd, and no doubt about it. So was it the right decision? I think it definitely was. I'm going to kind of go over some of the variables and some of the reasons why I think Diego Cartaya got removed from the 40-man roster. We will talk about what a DFA is here in a minute, what all it means, why I think it's actually a good thing for Diego. But if you look at his statistics here, in 2023 is when things really started going downhill for him. As of 2022, he split time in 2022 between Single A Rancho and High A Great Lakes. He was a Dodgers number one prospect, and for very good reason. As you look on these stats right here, you look at his 2022 season between both levels, 26% strikeout rate, which, hey, that's not incredibly great, but it's very, very, very acceptable. I always talk about that 25% strikeout rate being kind of the line that you want to draw there. But whenever you hit 22 home runs, and then especially when your ISO is 249, I talk about these two numbers all the time. If your strikeout rate is high, fine, I can deal with it as long as your power index matches it. So it's not necessarily how much you strike out, and it's not necessarily how many home runs you hit. It's the combination of both and the trade-off between the two. So you can see the trade-off between the strikeouts, even though 26.7 is a little bit high, and it had been high for the most part throughout his entire minor league career. Although that was the case, you can see his ISO right here actually at Rancho was higher than his K percentage in 137 at bats. Right here, his ISO was higher. So in two different occasions, his ISO had been higher than his strikeout percentage, and then two more occasions, they were almost identical, or at least close. So Diego Cartaya through 2022, he was rocking and rolling. He was hitting home runs. His strikeout rate compared to his ISO was absolutely fantastic. His batting averages were very good. You have a 298 here, a 296. You have a 260, a 251. Everything was absolutely on track for Diego Cartaya. So then 2023 hits, and he gets promoted to Double-A. You hear me say it all the time that I don't like to give major league projections. I don't like to compare. One of the reasons why I don't do top prospects list is I just don't like to compare a prospect, say that has played at the complex level, or even maybe even the Great Lakes level or the Rancho level, certainly with a guy that I get to see at Double-A Tulsa or Triple-A Oklahoma City, and Diego Cartaya is the poster child for that, because for each level that you increase in competition, then not only is there more information out there on you, you get a bigger book on you, like I've always talked about with Diego. To me, the adjustment he was going to have to make, see with that swing there, how he lifts his hands, and then also swings with a negative bat angle, meaning the bat is below the hands, and also he lifts his hands through the zone. To me, that made him vulnerable on the inside part of the plate. It made it hard for him to hit any kind of velo on the inner half, which meant that he had to cheat to that inner half, which then made him vulnerable to the soft stuff away, right? So hard in, soft away. That's as old as time in baseball. To me, that was the hole for Diego Cartaya. And so really you don't get to see how a player is going to be able to adjust until they get to the Double-A level, in my opinion, see that lift in his swing there. And then what kind of really holes that they're going to have that major league caliber talent is going to be able to exploit over and over and over. So to me, I just don't like to give those type of projections until they hit Double-A. And so this is when things really went downhill for Diego. 2023, he spends the entire season at Double-A Tulsa, and you see right here, the strikeout rate goes all the way down to 29%. The ISO goes all the way down to 189. So instead of these two either being similar or the ISO actually being higher than the K percentage, the K percentage climbed to quite a bit more than the ISO. So the trade-off between striking out and power became much more negative, and that's because he started walking less than 10% of the time. Plus, the batting average plummeted to 189. Thus, the WRC plus went all the way down to 71. Wow, what a drop for him. But hey, again, it is the first season in Double-A. It happens. Will Smith, even him, whenever he and Keibert Ruiz were coming through the system, they both had times to where their offense was terrible too. So I wasn't super worried about it. So he had a repeat of Double-A last year. And to be honest with you, he kind of rebounded a little bit. I mean, not tremendously. He had a 111 WRC plus, which meant he was 11% better than league average at the Double-A level while he was there for his first 192 at-bats of last year. But again, even in that rebound, the K percentage still was close to 30%. And you're getting further away between a good trade-off between power and striking out. See that? So so even with a little bit of bounce back, you see a little bit higher average of 236. Instead of being 29% below league average offensively, he became 11% above league average. That's quite a big of a jump for your WRC plus. But even with that little bit of a bounce back, his gap between the ratio between and the trade-off between striking out and power became even more negative, although he did start walking more at a 14% clip. So you're like, okay, well, unlike 2023, at least there are some positive things going on here. The WRC plus is raising, the walk percentage is raising, obviously the batting average is raising as well. And so, hey, let's move him up to AAA and see what he can do. And that's when he went right back down to just kind of the type of offense that he had for the entire season in 2023 at the AA level at AAA Oklahoma City. Batting average went down to 208. The WRC plus went down to 60. The ISO and the K percentage was almost twice his ISO, so he had almost a 2 times negative ratio between power and striking out, a trade-off there. And the walk percentage went below 10% again for Diego Cartaya. So what that tells you is that it takes Diego Cartaya a minute since he's got to AA, and other teams have a book on him, and they're talented enough players, skilled enough players at those levels to actually consistently hit their holes. What that tells you is that it takes Diego Cartaya quite a bit of time to bounce back, and the bounce back is certainly not perfect. The bounce back puts him back to maybe around a league average type offensive player, although his defense was very good. See how he lifted through that ball there? So you're thinking, okay, well, it's going to take him 400 or 500 at bats to adjust to the next level. So if that trend continues, if the Dodgers bring him up to a major league club, the trend is telling you it's going to take him 400 to 500 at bats to get comfortable at the major league level to even become an average major league offensive player, if it ever happens, right? Because we know that the major leagues are the ultimate jump. So the problem is the Dodgers are in forever win now mode. When I say forever, I don't ever see an end to this win now mentality, at least as long as this front office is in place. And there is no position player. We saw James Outman only get 120 at bats last year after he'd proved the entire 2023 season that he could be a $27 million a year center fielder with a 4.1 WAR. After having that incredible major league season, he only got 120 at bats. So definitely, if that guy only gets 120 at bats, then a rookie coming up is never going to get 500 at bats in this win now system for the Dodgers just to get comfortable in the system and get their skin comfortable. It's just not that time for the Dodgers. So does Diego Cartaya still have talent? Yes. Does he still have he's only 23 years old. So does he have the possibility still to have an incredible future? Absolutely. But with the Dodgers win now, they just don't have the time to give him 500 at bats at the major league level, which is what his history would show, just to get him to be an average offensive player. There is no window for that to happen. And then there is no guarantees that even if they did, it would happen. So for those reasons, I definitely think that removing Diego Cartaya off the 40-man with the roster crunch we've talked about was 100% a correct decision. It's not one that I saw coming from the Dodgers. I thought they would trade him. But having said that, so if you DFA Diego Cartaya, one of the other things that makes sense is that I think that the Dodgers are doing so to create a trade situation and find a trade partner for him. So the first thing that happens when a player gets, as you see right here, DFA'd, that term right there stands for designated for assignment. That assignment would be for the minor leagues. So what happens is you get DFA'd. First thing that happens, you get removed off of the club that you're on. You get removed off of their 40-man roster. Then there is a 7-day period where your club has 7 days to trade you. They can outright you to the minor leagues, or they can release you on waivers, right? So there's 3 different options there: trade, outright, or release. Unless, we saw this with Nabil Creasmont. This is the difference between a guy like Cartaya and Creasmont, though. Okay, so right here you see if a player has 5 years or more of major league service time, which is a certain amount of days on a 26-man roster, which obviously Diego Cartaya does not have, they can reject that assignment, and instead they can choose free agency. That's what we saw Nabil Creasmont do 2 different times last year. The first time that he accepted free agency, he turned right around and re-signed with the Dodgers. The second time that Nabil Creasmont, you see his name right here, the second time Nabil Creasmont chose free agency, he then signed with the Padres. But he was able to do that because he had more than 3 years of major league service, or he had been previously outrighted. So you either need 5 years of major league service to reject the assignment, like, no, I'm not going down the minor leagues, or you need more than 3 years of major league service, or if you have been previously outrighted, meaning you'd been previously put on waivers as far as the DFA goes. And that's something that Nabil Creasmont has done. This is the first time that Diego Cartaya has ever been DFA'd. This is the first, obviously he doesn't have 5 years or even 3 years or any years of major league service. So if Diego Cartaya clears waivers, if he doesn't get traded and then no team picks him up, so if there's no trade in that 7-day period, a team can pick Diego Cartaya up on waivers. There is a pecking order in terms of the order of finish for all the organizations. The teams that finish the worst have the first dibs on a guy on the waiver wire. So the advantage, if there's a guy on a waiver wire that you want, we see the Dodgers pick up guys on waivers all the time. You say, well, why wouldn't you just pick him up on waivers? Why would you trade for him? Because if you're one of the better teams in the major leagues, like the Dodgers already are, you're way down there in the pecking order. And so you're going to make a claim for this guy on waivers, but then another organization like the Pittsburgh Pirates, per se, can swoop in and take that guy because they had a worse record than you last year. So if there is a organization out there that really wants Diego Cartaya, it would behoove them, and they will trade for Cartaya. We saw that last year with James Paxton, right? And how he got traded to the Boston Red Sox, okay? So I think definitely either he will get traded or be picked up on waivers. I don't see really a very good chance that he clears waivers. And again, if he does clear waivers, he cannot reject the minor league assignment that the Dodgers would give him. So he would be back with AAA Oklahoma City, and he would have option years, and it would be just like he was, except for he wouldn't be on the 40-man. So some more reasons why the Dodgers probably chose Diego Cartaya. Austin talks about this all the time. When a player only has one option year left, okay, and here's some more of his statistics, Diego Cartaya's. If he goes through this next 2025 season and doesn't get added to the major league roster, or he's no impact to the major league club, then he is out of options after next year, right? And that player to another club is not attractive at all, because you're talking about a player that has no major league experience and that you have to put on your 26-man roster and that you cannot send down to your 26-man roster. So this was a situation to where I think they're going to put him on waivers, look for a trade partner while he still has one option year, which would be attractive to another team, because if another team picks up his contract and as soon as another team picks him up, they have to put Diego Cartaya on their 40-man, but they can still option him down to AAA next year. This is the last year that can happen. So if you're going to trade a guy like that, that's why we've been talking about all the guys with just one option year left. It makes, like Andy Pages, if you're ever going to trade those guys, the time to do it is before they run out of options, right? So he was put on, Diego Cartaya was, the 40-man roster in November of 2022. And so he's 23. So you have 3 option years, right? And so 23 was an option year, 24 was an option year, and he has one more in 25. Those option years do not have to come in consecutive years. So like Gavin Lux still has option years because he didn't use all of them. And so it's not 3 years in a row, it's 3 years total. So 2023 was an option year for Cartaya. 24 was an option year for Cartaya. 25 will be his third option year if he's not on a major league roster for a certain amount of time. And he should be attractive because he's only 23 years old. And so why do I say this is actually a good scenario for Diego Cartaya? Because there are so many situations, especially in organizations like the Dodgers, that are so win now that prospects, they just kind of age out. And who you're seeing on the screen here is Hunter Fiducia. So let's talk about free agency. Okay, let's talk about what can happen to a prospect that gets stuck in a system and never gets opportunity, like that's happened so far to a Hunter Fiducia. Now, a guy like Drew Avens, who never got put on a 40-man, the Dodgers never put him on the 40-man, and that was a benefit to Avens, because after your sixth year of being in the minor leagues, if you've never been added to your team's 40-man, then you can become a free agent. But here's the problem. So if you sign, you can see right here, if you sign 18, if you're 18 years or younger when you sign, you can be in that organization's minor league system for 5 years before you become eligible for the Rule 5 draft, when other teams can draft you in that Rule 5 draft. But if you're 19 or older, like because Hunter Fiducia went to LSU Eunice and then he finished at the big LSU, right? He was definitely 19 years or older whenever he signed. Those players, you can only have them in the minor leagues for 4 years. So the first 4 years, they can keep you in the minor leagues like the Dodgers have done with Hunter Fiducia. Then let's say that fourth year, right? Because you want to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. We see that all the time, okay? And we saw that with Edgardo Henriquez. The Dodgers put him on the 40-man roster because they knew they were going to have to do that in the offseason this year anyways, because he was going to be Rule 5 eligible. And if he was not placed on that 40-man, then he was going to get taken. The Dodgers were going to lose him. So let's say that you spend all 4 years that you have eligible if you sign it as a 19-year-old or older in the minor leagues. Then in your fourth year, like Edgardo Henriquez and then also Hunter Fiducia, your club decides to put you on the 40-man to protect you from the Rule 5 draft. At that point now, you have 3 option years. So now, if the club continues to leave you in the minor leagues for those 3 option years, now you've been with your organization for 7 years and are still in their minor league system, right? But the good part at that point, at least at that point, after those 7 years, they have to put you on their 26-man roster and leave you there because you are out of minor league options. So let's say that they do that, right? Let's say that after Hunter Fiducia runs out of minor league options, they put him on, they keep him. They don't release him or trade him. They keep him. They would have to put him on the 26-man roster. At that point, you have to have 6 years of service to become a free agent. So for a guy like Hunter Fiducia, who has very, very, very limited opportunities, we saw the Dodgers re-sign Will Smith. You got Austin Barnes next year. Of course, that doesn't affect necessarily the next 7 or 8 years. But then also you have Dalton Rushing and guys like that, right? It could be as many as 13 years before a player becomes eligible to become a free agent. Okay, when you're talking about a guy like Hunter Fiducia, who started professional baseball after a college career, and you're 23 years old, you're talking about a guy that is 36 years old before they ever even have their own option to choose which organization they want to play with. So, for instance, Hunter Fiducia is 27. He signed in 2018. He was put on the 40-man in November of 2023. He still has 2 option years left, so that's 27, 28. And then if the Dodgers put him on the 26 at that point, he would be a free agent after the 2032 season. Hunter Fiducia would be 35 years old before he ever became a free agent. And that's with a very limited opportunity to become a major leaguer. Now, that would be 3 years of major league service, which is a pretty good paycheck. But still, he would be 35 years old before he became a free agent. So again, for Diego Cartaya, was DFAing him a good thing? For the Dodgers, I think definitely, because they don't have any path forward for him. They did not have the window. He's shown that he probably can make adjustments, the adjustments he needed to, or at least it was possible, but they don't have the window to give him the 500 at bats to do that. And like the Hunter Fiducia situation, unlike that, I should say, Diego Cartaya now can go to another organization that might pick him up in a trade or off the waiver wire, and he can have a better opportunity to have a major league career. And unlike Hunter Fiducia, when he's 27, he might already have 3 years of major league service time, maybe even 4 years towards his free agency, and be low 30s when he does that. So good thing for Diego Cartaya, and in my opinion, it was a good decision by the Dodgers. So there you have it. There are some of my thoughts on the Diego Cartaya DFA situation. I think it's a great situation for him. I think it's a situation to where he can go off to another organization and carve his way and have a much better opportunity. I say it all the time with these guys. Man, either play him or trade him. Get him in a situation to where they can help your club via trade or help your club via on the field as well. One or the other. I don't care which one it is. The only thing that frustrates me whenever I get into the frustrating part of it is whenever you have somebody like a Hunter Fiducia that could be 35 years old before they become a free agent. So I hope you enjoyed that part of the talk about Diego Cartaya tonight. That was kind of my thoughts on that. I wanted to explain the DFA part of it, the free agency part of it, why it would be a good deal for Diego Cartaya, and why it's also the right decision. I won't call it a good or a bad decision. I'll call it the right decision for the Dodgers. Glenn Comita, thank you so much for the super chat. It's great for Diego. Fresh start. I would agree with that. Craig Osterberg, Otani was throwing this weekend at a high school. Shohei Otani will start pitching in May. So we will not see him in spring training. We will see him get ramped up during the season, and that is going to be super fun. And hey, the Dodgers, obviously Otani being awesome is the biggest factor to that. But I think another factor to that is a big part of it. The Dodgers have been trying to figure out how to have their cake and eat it too in terms of pitching. And what I mean by that is they've been trying to figure out, okay, so how do we have this approach where we want every pitcher we have to maximize their velo? We want everybody to max out on everything, but then not have more arm injuries, shoulder injuries, elbow injuries than everybody else in the league. The Dodgers have not been able to figure that out yet. So I think part of this formula is, well, we have a two-way player that allows us to have 14 pitchers and 13 position players. 26. So you say, well, 14 and 13 adds up to 27, but one player is both. And so you're going to have 14 listed players on your 26-man roster listed as pitchers, and you're going to have 13 listed on your 26 as position players. And I would assume when Shohei Otani pitches, he will also be the DH. That way, whenever he comes out of the game, he'll stay in that spot in the order. That's the way they do it in every other level, at the college level and everywhere else. I would assume that's the same way that they do it at the major league level. So I think part of this equation is that because so that six-man rotation never made sense with a 13 pitcher 26-man roster, because it's just math for every pitcher that you're taking. So to add to your starting staff, you're taking away from your relievers. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're not gaining anything. You're just trading one for the other. But by having a two-way player, now you have that 14th pitcher on roster. Now you can add that sixth starter without losing a pin arm, anybody in the pin, right? So now you're going to have six starters. You're still going to have the 8 relievers. Whereas if you did that with a normal 13-man pitcher roster, you would only have 7 relievers. So I think the Dodgers have figured out a way to continue to maximize their pitchers at the major league level. And then also, I think maybe we'll see, try to avoid the most amount of injuries as possible. But yes, Shohei Otani going to start back up in May, and we'll see how that goes. I am super excited about it. Kim will get plenty of playing time in AAA and the bigs next year. Depending on his progress, he could be the starting second baseman, and we will see what happens to Gavin Lux. Ocean View Coffee Shop, so excited for the baseball season. I am too. Chin Lu, Dodgers re-sign Cartaya, send to the minor leagues. Well, it wouldn't be re-signing. They would assign him to the minor leagues if he clears waivers, does not get traded. I don't think he'll clear waivers, but if he does, he will not have the ability to turn down the assignment to go back to the minor leagues. So if Diego Cartaya does clear waivers, he will continue to be in the Dodgers system. Hey, Justin Lamas, thank you so much for joining at 2:45 France time. That is awesome of you to do. I do agree that Cartaya will get traded. Hey, NorCal Eddie, thank you so much for the compliment of the breakdown of Diego. I just had a bunch of thoughts on it. I thought I would handle all those thoughts with some slides. I hope that made it a little bit more easier to follow as far as what I was trying to say. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for that comment. Justin Lama, Seager's a stud out of high school. He was drafted in June of 2012 and did not become eligible for free agency until November of 2021. That's what I'm talking about. It takes a long time, and especially in a Dodger system where they don't just run you right up the ladder. Like Jackson Holiday, who's from my hometown of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Hell, it didn't take him any period of time at all to get to the major league. So his service time started accruing very, very early in his career. But if you're in the Dodger system and you're like you said, I mean, you came out of high school, then it becomes a situation to where it can be a long time before you become a free agent. Hey, Capel, Agarwal, in the macro of a long season, the home run ball wins a lot of games, but you don't need that in your 8th and 9th spot in your lineup. That takes us back to Hyesung Kim. That's another part of, that's probably the part of it. The two parts of it, I'm going to say this again. This is kind of what I'm going to go back to. The two parts of this that I am the most excited about. One is that Hyesung Kim is yet another example of the Dodgers trying to become more of a balanced, dynamic offensive philosophy. That excites me to no end. I want to hit home runs. I want to have 3 true outcome guys in my lineup. But I also want to have guys that gather base hits and walk and steal bases and just put the ball in play, hit behind runners, situationally hit, and can score runs in different ways. I want an offense that can score in every which way. That way, because we all know hitting home runs is not something that happens a lot. So if you rely only on hitting home runs, you're going to hit about 8 of them in one game and win one game 15-0. And then you're going to not hit any in the next game, and you're going to lose by scoring no runs. It's just too boom or bust. So number one, the most exciting part of this to me is that the Dodgers are adding and showing that they have bought into the dynamics of having a balanced offense. I think that is a large reason why they won the World Series last year. I think they realize that. I think that's a pivot they've made, and I think it's been one that has just been absolutely wildly successful. Okay? Number two, as far as the most exciting part of this, is that the Dodgers have had their eye on this guy for a long time. And I can tell you, when the Dodgers have their eye on a player and they follow him and they want him and he is a guy that they covet, they don't miss on those guys. They didn't miss on Tommy Edman. It's the exact same situation, and so I don't think they're missing on this one either. So from those two perspectives, I could not be more excited about this pickup for HyeseongKim Kim and the future of where this is heading. Hey, Haesung has already played the Dodgers and Padres in 2024. I know that is very, very, very exciting. So what we're going to do next is we're going to transition. And by the way, I think Clint Pasillas is going to go live here at 7:30 Pacific. So I'm going to try not to butt up against him. What I want you to do is to watch this Down on the Farm segment as we finish the show here, and then head over and watch Clint. Talk to him today. We're going to do some collaboration this week. Going to try to set up a schedule where we can get together. I can get on his show. Maybe he can get on mine, and we can cross over a little bit and have some fun there. So as soon as we're done with this, head over to Clint and watch him. Before we do, please stick around for the Down on the Farm segment. I think you guys all know that's my favorite part of this. Going to hear from Steven Nelson about how he views the offseason, how he thinks it's gone. We're going to hear from him about that. We're going to hear from Taylor Young about his approach and the way that, he steals more bases than anybody in the organization. He had a little bit of a down year last year, but how he is approaching this year coming up. We're going to hear about Jackson Ferris from Dave Anderson, the High A Great Lakes pitching coach. We're also going to hear from 6'7" Seamus Barrett, who just got drafted last summer out of Loyola Marymount, who is a super, super, super exciting young 6'7" pitching prospect with a split finger fastball, okay, that just drops out of the sky. We're going to hear from Cam Day, who has Blake Trinan type nasty stuff. So it's a Down on the Farm. That's a lot of fun. Hope you stick around. So with that, let's not waste any more time. Let's take a trip down the farm. How do you see this offseason finishing?
Yeah, look, I'll just speak to the moves that have been made up to this point. Obviously, Dodger fans are very familiar with Blake Trinan, a deserved deal for him to come back and solidify the back end of the bullpen. Because, look, I think as we sit here right now, it's still a bullpen. It's well-stocked, but not fully stocked. And so you'd expect another move there. But the Dodgers have shown consistently that they will find diamonds in the rough.
Absolutely.
A la Evan Phillips, you hope he's healthy. A la Anthony Banda. A la Alex Vesey, right? Like the list, Ryan Brazier, right? The entire pen.
Yancy Almonte, yeah.
Yeah, totally. But for Blake to come back and know that you have that sort of safety net, that safety blanket in high leverage spots, it feels good. For me personally, I'm fired up for Michael Conforto, man. And because it's personal for me. Like when my very first job in television was as a sports reporter in Oregon, in Eugene. And so my beat was Oregon State. And so the very first college baseball team that I covered had a handful of guys, a bunch of guys that were drafted, a handful that made the show. And the star was Michael Conforto. And so getting to cover Mike back then, and gosh, when we were in Corvallis, he was appointment viewing, man. I hated not being able to go up there and watch a game with my own two eyes and having to settle for, pulling clips off of TV or emailing an affiliate, because like just watching college Conforto he was a Golden Spikes finalist for a reason. Like he was special. And so, hey, he was a 10th overall pick. There was a time in New York where they were debating, would you rather have Aaron Judge or Michael Conforto? I think people have to remind themselves, like, that's the talent that this guy possesses. Now, a brutal shoulder injury sort of, I won't say derailed, but certainly sidetracked his career. And so now he's a change of scenery candidate. He's similar to Teo, right? His home numbers in Oracle were not good, but the road splits give you a ton of confidence that maybe a new batter's eye and playing for a team where he's got a ton of he's hoping to provide protection for the stars, but absolutely. There's a ton of aircraft carriers in that lineup where he doesn't have to do a ton of heavy lifting and he could just kind of go out and be Michael Conforto again. I'm really excited to see him this year. So
can't say enough about Jax. the year he had, he's another one that it's like he put together a 1 month span that was as dominant as I've seen at this level. His last outing in Great Lakes was an 8-inning no-hit outing. But to get to that point, the kid worked. And he is the type of kid that it doesn't matter whether it's ping pong, golf, baseball, he's going to kick your butt. And he's the one that guys want to play against or don't want to play against because he's tough to beat in anything he does. And he takes that mentality into it. And I think what's really special about him outside of baseball is if you were to ask him, I think he genuinely had an expectation for himself to pitch in Dodger Stadium this year, but was entirely present with where his feet were. So it's like he has this realism to him, but is driven by where he wants to be, and he never lets the two collide, which is really special. Yeah. And the work he does is second to none, for sure. He's a kid. We did a couple delivery things early on, and velo starts ticking up, 4s and 5s, starts hitting 6s and 7s, and it's back to the threshold that we had seen from him in the past. And rather than being good there, he came in the next day after the start and goes, now how do we get more? And it's like he's that type of kid that it's great, this is awesome, but now what? And I think he's that special type that, you know, good enough is never good enough, but he's also smart enough to realize in a 9-inning baseball game, good enough is all that matters. But in terms of his career and his development, there is no threshold of good enough. So he's continually pushing himself forward. But when he steps on that line, whatever he's got, good enough is just for him leaving the game with more runs on the board than the other team. So he's pretty special. You
mentioned the 4s and the 5s, but the secondaries, what do they look like right now for Jackson Ferris?
Man, that slider, slider's invisible. I've never seen a reaction. We were playing Quad Cities, and he struck out their leadoff guy for the 3rd time on the day, and we heard him audibly say, I can't see it. And, you know, it's a special pitch. There's a jumpiness to his stuff that, you know, he's got the extension piece, which everybody knows helps things play up. He's about 6'7", 6'8". So it's above average extension. But on top of that, it's also extremely jumpy. You stand in the box with him, and it's like that thing's gaining momentum as it's coming at you. It's a different look, and it's extremely athletic. So that's the big thing he has in his corner is athleticism.
Is he as confident? We'll put it that way. Well, is he as confident as he looks on video?
100%. But also, he's the type, he's not going to say on a given day, if he doesn't have something, he's going to tell you he doesn't have it, but he's also going to back that up with, I'm going to go beat you with what I have. So he's not overconfident, but he's entirely confident in any given moment, for sure.
Yeah.
You have people from all over the world, you know, trying to make it to the major leagues, which everybody on the team wants to do. And at some point there comes a time where you have to be selfish and you have to do what's best for you and your career. And that's with anything in life. You don't want to be on the back burner for everybody else and watch everybody else succeed. You want to succeed as well. So there's a fine line in minor league baseball of, you know, being a team and all bought in and like a brotherhood, and then also being, you know, be the best version of yourself that day for the team, and then that will get you wins. And like you said, there was a lot of injuries, a lot of moving parts, a lot of new faces. A lot of first years in AA on our team. Also mixed with some guys with a lot of experience too, so that was really good. Brendan Davis, one of the guys, he really helped me a lot this year. And obviously he's played in the big leagues before, so that was awesome to get to bounce ideas off him for a whole year. And but going back to what you said, just trying to find that line of being selfish and not being too selfish, but doing what's best for the team, knowing when to, you know, take your hit or get the guy over or whatever the situation calls for, just doing it to the best of your ability. And I don't think anybody's out there trying to lose games. And obviously Scott Hennessy has a, you know, amazing track record, and, you know, he hates losing more than anybody in there. And he let us know that, and we let him know that too. So it wasn't anything in particular that I can put my finger on. It was just a grind. Yeah. And that's really, it's just a grind, the ups and downs, the who's going to get called up, who's not going to get called up, you know, just the whole game. It was a great learning experience. I don't think this coming up year will be the same. I think it'll be a lot different in the wins aspect.
Super talented on the field, no doubt, but your calling card is your positive energy you play with, just the positive outlook that you have with everything that you do in life. I got to know where that came from. I got to know what the sauce is. I got to order me some, man.
Honestly, it hasn't always been like that. I've definitely been times where I've been really hard on myself, and honestly, it hasn't always worked out the best that way. So just trying to keep everything positive. Everything's a learning experience, and it's been a long road in the minors, man. It's a tough grind, but trying to kind of keep it positive and just learn and keep learning, because you can never know too much in this game. There's always people around you can learn from, coaches, teammates, fans, whatever it is. So it's just kind of keeping that growth mindset, kind of something I learned in college, and kind of just really falling back on that and just really trying to stay positive and enjoy the experience. We're not going to be able to play baseball forever, so I think it's one of the coolest jobs in the world. So just being able to kind of soak it in has really been fun for me. Like you said, yeah, this game is very humbling, and right when you think that you're the best, like, it shows you that you're just not there yet. So definitely it was hard experiencing that, especially in low A, when you think you're going to come in and kind of dominate. And it kind of got me back into a mode of just working really hard like I did in college. And every single year in college, I think I kind of increased and got better and better every year. The numbers got better and better every year, and kind of just translating, bringing that same mindset over to the minors, not trying to be somebody I'm not, but just trying to steadily improve and learn, like I said. And so every year I feel like I've just gotten better, and mentally I've just gotten stronger. And I feel like it's starting to show on the field, and just trying to keep those steps going and just keep building one by one. And so it's been a fun transition, and obviously this game is hard, and it's never going to really not be hard, but I think that's what keeps us coming back. I think that's what keeps baseball players loving this game, is that you can't really beat this game. You can't be perfect. It's just every day you got to go out there and give your best. So I think that's been a huge piece for me, and I'm kind of excited to keep doing that this year, moving into the 2025 season.
Well, you're 6'7" now, right? Do I got that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and a splitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, man, that thing must, to hitter, just seem like it's falling out of the sky.
Yeah, I got really lucky with that one. It was I was always, for years and years and years, my whole baseball career, I'd struggle with the changeup, and I couldn't get any movement on it, really. I would try to over-pronate it, and it wouldn't come out the way I wanted it to. And I was in the transfer portal one off season, and my old travel baseball coach, Steve August, kept calling me and telling me, we have this coach, Ace Adams, you have to come work with. I play for this program in New England called the New England Roughnecks, and this pitching coach was working with them at the time. So I went to go throw a bullpen with him, and he just gave me this one splitter grip and was like, hey, try this. And the first one I threw, just the bottom fell out of it and it dropped. And I was like, okay, that might be the solution to the problems I've been looking for. So scrapped the changeup and just been mostly fastball splitter ever since. And it's really been a great pitch for me, because my fastball gets a lot of ride and carry on it, and the splitter's been able to just do the opposite and have the bottom kind of drop out of it. So I was lucky.
Are you able to throw it out of the same tunnel, or is it like two entirely separate deals?
No, I mean, I throw it exactly the same as I throw my fastball. I just pretty much spread the fingers and put my thumb on the side of it instead of putting my thumb on the bottom of it. And I don't think anything different other than the fastball, and it falls.
So 6'7", what are your extension numbers? Do you know those?
I think it's about 6'7", 6'8". It's nothing crazy, but I get down the mound a decent amount. But
yeah. So the velo numbers, where are they at right now?
I've been up to 98, 99 range, but usually sit around 6'7". So.
Oh, wow, you sit 6 or 7. Wow, that's fantastic, Seamus. Okay, so you sit 6 or 7 now. Is that where you want to sit when you become Major League ready, or do you still feel like there's still a little bit left to go there?
I mean, I feel like I have a lot of room left to grow. Every year I've played baseball, I've significantly upticked. Even from the college season to the draft season last year, I went up a lot. So I think and the amount of information the Dodgers have given me, and like all the great stuff they've given me that I've never even heard before, I feel like is going to have a huge impact. So I mean, I'm not going to put a ceiling on it. I hope I can sit in the 99 to 100 range by the time I'm Major League ready. That would be great.
Still have your slider and curveball?
The curveball is not it's a little slow for this level hitters. I used to throw it from like 73, 74, so a little bit of a moonball surprise pitch, but it was almost an ephus. But yeah, maybe I'll mix it back in every now and then, but it's not really there yet. And working on changing the slider shape. The slider's not been the most consistent, but working on a nice hard gyro slider to work in with the splitter and have a real third pitch there.
So your big sweeper that you have, can you tell me what your vertical break is on that pitch?
Let's see. It's probably around like anywhere from, -2, -4.
Yeah. Right. I asked that to say basically it's almost exactly straight sideways, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a cut fastball. So can you talk about those two pitches and how you move, how you're really horizontal with those two pitches?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sweeper has been in my arsenal, for the longest time. Probably since I was 10 years old or something like that.
What you used to call it before they came up with the term sweeper?
Slider.
Slider, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Slider, some people call it a curveball. Some people call it a slurve.
Slurve,
So, but I would just always call it a slider because that's just the way that's just what it was called when I learned it. But yeah, it's just been my go-to strikeout pitch, for the longest time. And it's been something that, I try to tunnel with my fastball as best as I can, try to, use my fastball to get ahead in counts and set up that sweeper. And, it's been a great combo for me. And I think, having just that horizontal movement on it. I think that's just been my main focus, is just seeing, how much movement I can get on them and everything like that. And just try to keep the hitters guessing the best I can.
It was definitely a big change from college ball. Playing the full summer and a long season, 146 something games. It went really, really well for my goals and what I wanted to achieve. Obviously, I wish some things could have been better here and there, but it was a really good learning experience for me. I met a lot of great coaches and players and learned from them all. So I think going through the season, I would say it's very successful for me and setting me up for a good path next year and years on.
Your stuff is absolutely nasty. I mean, like the first couple of times I got to see you quite a bit at the professional level, is like, wow. I mean, your ball moves right, it moves left, your slider is Blake Trinan-esque, and I mean, it's a really good mix. You've been up to 99 miles an hour. But one question I wanted to ask you, your ball moves so much naturally. Sometimes is it hard to control?
Oh, that's probably the biggest challenge I'm going through right now is sacrificing a little bit of movement for the command. I've got a really good natural ability to spin the ball, move the balls certain ways. So kind of finding the balance of movement versus location and execution is something that we're still working on and improving. The big thing that the Dodgers preach and really push is first pitch strike and racing to two strikes. There's been a lot of pitchers that I've talked to, and they say that's kind of the biggest thing that's helped them improve their game. So that's something that we're always working on, and I would say the biggest thing for me. River Ryan's another guy that kind of talked about that. I'm pretty sure in one of your interviews or something like that, but. Yeah, definitely the getting ahead and managing those counts and managing the hitters' perspective and how you can get them to swing and chase and play off your own pitch types.